Why did cults get so normalized in the 60s and 70s? It's because cults pop up in times of social turmoil. And also because we were going through a huge walking away from religion, just like we are now. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. I wrote a book called Uncultured about growing up in one of those famous cults from the 60s and 70s, the Children of God religious cult, and then going into the cult of the US Army, which also got a lot cultier in the 60s and 70s when they discovered brainwashing and said, I wonder if we can use this as a weapon against our soldiers. Okay, so we have periods of cults spiking in the United States, including in the mid-1800s in upstate New York. This is when you have the Fruitlands, a cult that Louisa May Alcott's fathers started, and Oneida, yes, that Oneida, which started as a religious commune and then ultimately just turned into a business. Remember, cults are always a business. Cults are always organized crime, and then sometimes the cult part falls apart and the business remains, which is kind of what happened, but I still don't use Oneida. In the 1830s, this was also a period of revivalism and people either walking away from religions, finding new ones, right? I believe we have Mormonism coming around at this time. Okay, Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witnesses, Salvation Army would be started in the late 1800s, right? So there was kind of a bunch of those. Then in the 1930s, we have it again, another period of revivalism. And this time we have cults like Alcoholics Anonymous. We have cults like, 1930s, I'm blanking on my 1930s cults. We have some other cults coming out, but it really got normalized in the 60s and 70s. And a lot of that had to do with modernity. A lot of this has to do with education, people getting more education at that time. But mostly it has to do with times of social turmoil, when we are pulling down systems and realizing they don't work for us, including old religious systems, and trying to find new frameworks for how to live our life. And one of the things I say is anywhere in the space of personal transformation, predators will show up. And when the whole nation is going through a time of personal transformation, cults pop up. We can also look at this in reverse and understand that right now, the times we are living through with a cult documentary popping onto Netflix every other week, these are times of social turmoil. These are times of social systems changing. Someone asked me in an interview, well, what do you mean all times are social turmoil? And I said, well, boomers grew up going to protests, and millennials didn't really grow up going to protests as a whole. Like, that generation didn't really experience that. But now our child, Gen Alpha, like, they're growing up going to protests, right? So there are some times that we can identify as more of social turmoil. And in fact, we can identify cults popping up throughout the world. So it was America in the 60s and 70s, America and Canada. And then it was big parts of Europe and a lot of Asia in the 80s, and then it was really heavily Latin America in the 90s. And my family pretty much followed that pattern with their international cult. So yeah, that's why cults pop up in times of social turmoil. And just like during COVID, with everyone going through extreme isolation, we knew that extremism was going to get worse because that's what isolation does. We know now, with authoritarian leadership going on and all of these other things that are happening, like, a lot of cults are going to pop up. And in fact, one of the things the Children of God founder did was all cult leaders are not created equal. So he went and got a population already culted in all these other cults and pulled them into his, which is the exact same thing that Donald Trump has done with the cult of MAGA. You can get signed copies of Uncultured attached here, or listen to me read it to you on Spotify Premium or anywhere else you get your audiobooks. Culting of America explains so much more. This one's a story. It still helps you really understand what is going on in our country today. This one is the research book that is written in plain language and actually explains it a lot more. That is available for pre-sale now. Comes out January 20th. Big book party in College Park, Maryland. If you are watching this not on TikTok, you can take a look at our packages tagged here. Coming back to say that Max Weber, who came up with the term charismatic authority, who secularized the term from religion, posits that we needed charismatic authority to pop up in the early 1900s because modernity had advanced so much, science had advanced so much that we lost the concept of magic in our lives, and human beings need the concept of magic, something to believe. And so we put it into individuals in a secular way, the charismatic leader.